Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sam Robbins, and I get a lot of guys asking about sex drive and lowered libido and erectile problems. Actually, I also get women asking about these same problems, minus the erectile dysfunction, of course. They ask me, for example, what's the cause? Or how can they fix it? Or can it be fixed, or quickly and naturally? Or why is it affecting them at such a young age? And this is because a lot of people are getting it, erectile problems and lowered libido in their 20s and 30s are asking about it. So it's not just for, older people past the age of 40 or 50. They also share with me their vulnerabilities, such as, I feel older because of this, or they lack the confidence now and have lowered self-esteem, or that it's negatively affecting their relationships and they're worried, or they're afraid to start a relationship because they don't feel sexual or can't perform. Anyway, if you're also dealing with any of these situations or feelings or have questions, you're not alone. Of course, before you can give someone a solution to something, we first need to know what the problem is. And this is why quickly putting someone on, let's say, hormones or testosterone replacement therapy can be a big mistake. You need to know the problem first, but I'll leave that for another day and another video. So with that said, today I'm going to discuss the top 5 popular prescription drugs that lower sex drive in both men and women while also causing erectile problems. Now, I am going to discuss drugs today because a lot of people are on these drugs and they don't realize that they're causing a lot of these problems. So we first need to fix the problem before we can get to the solution. Now, one drug are hypertension or anti-hypertensive drugs. And these drugs are prescribed for people who have high blood pressure, which is a very high percentage of people. And the older you get, the higher your blood pressure due to aging and the negative changes in your hormones. High blood pressure is such a big problem that there are almost a dozen different types of drugs that help lower hypertension and high blood pressure. For example, there are diuretics, alpha and beta blockers, ACE inhibitors. There are angiotensin receptor blockers, ARBs. There's calcium channel blockers, androgenic inhibitors. There's vasodilators, and a few other. Sadly, most of them cause some sort of libido and erectile problem, and then combining 2 or more of them, as do many doctors, obviously makes the situation a lot worse. But, having a better diet, an exercise program, and actually taking specific vitamins can make a difference. Now, another set of drugs that tend to cause sexual problems are corticosteroids or stimulants, or basically anything that increases stress. And these drugs basically mimic the stress hormones. And you've probably heard of cortisol, and that's what these drugs basically replicate or activate in the body. Unfortunately, as stress hormones such as cortisol or adrenaline go up, testosterone levels come down. It also restricts blood flow. Now, testosterone is a primary hormone in both men and women that controls your sex drive, physically, mentally, and emotionally. In men, testosterone helps improve erections, and in women, it increases clitoral sensitivity. Now, some of the more popular corticosteroid drugs are prednisone or hydrocortisone. You've probably heard of them. Also, this is really important, anything that causes an increase in adrenaline also increases cortisol. Thus, taking any quote-unquote amphetamine type of drug will also cause negative sexual side effects. These can be typically like ADHD drugs, such as, you probably heard of them, Adderall or Dexedrine or Ritalin or modafinil and Provigil. Even taking too much caffeine or especially pre-workout supplements the guys take, before going to the gym, and similar what I call uppers, all increase cortisol and eventually decrease testosterone levels. So at the very least, if you want to keep taking these drugs or, stimulants, you need to improve your cortisol levels. You need to decrease them, especially at night, especially again, if you're taking stimulants. Now, another set of drugs, and I'm going to combine them into 2 different ones that cause a lot of sexual problems, are first antidepressant drugs. Actually, I was shocked to find out that around 25% of the population is actually taking antidepressants. And during our recent times in our world, with all the problems we've been dealing with and our health, there's been a sharp increase in the use of antidepressant drugs. Now, one of the issues these drugs cause is linked to serotonin, which then decreases dopamine. So serotonin goes up, dopamine comes down, which will then decrease both sexual desire and performance in the bedroom. Now, some of the more popular antidepressant drugs that you've probably heard of are serotonin reuptake inhibitors such as Lexapro or Prozac, or Noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors such as Wellbutrin or Zyban, or tricyclic antidepressants such as Pamelor. This is a big problem, and this also leads us to another set of similar drugs, which are the anti-anxiety drugs, such as the benzodiazepines. Many doctors will prescribe these drugs along or in replacement of antidepressants, these anti-anxiety drugs. These tend to act more like tranquilizers, really calming the body, and they treat problems such as anxiety, insomnia, agitation, or muscle spasms, or panic attacks, or even pain. And some of the more popular ones and common drugs that you've probably heard of are Xanax, or Ativan, or Klonopin, or Valium. By the way, true story on my personal level, I once took a very low dose of Xanax, 0.25 milligrams at night to help me sleep. I was going through a really stressful time. It just basically really helped my mind and my body relax so, I can fall asleep and stay asleep. I'm never a good sleeper if you watch any of my videos, and, the Xanax, it worked really well. However, the very next day, I was very tired, very slow, very blah, very unmotivated. I didn't feel like doing anything. I didn't feel like really working or going to the gym or, again, doing anything or even talking to people. And yes, it affected my sex drive. I had way lower sex drive, and it was like impossible to get an erection. So I stopped using the Xanax within a week and just looked for natural alternatives to help, improve stuff like, GABA levels or serotonin levels, but without any of the negative sexual side effects. Basically, natural solutions that work with my body rather than against, and that's how these drugs work. More details below on what I did and what I use daily for the past 20 years. Now, the last set of drugs that I like to discuss are cholesterol drugs, cholesterol, statin, fibrates. Many cholesterol-lowering drugs cause erectile problems, in addition to a lot of other issues, such as muscle pain and muscle loss and muscle weakness, memory problems, liver issues, just fatigue, also lowered mood and so forth, not being as happy. And these are usually, for example, statin drugs or fibrates drugs, again, all designed to improve cholesterol levels. The problem here is because cholesterol is required for the production of sex hormones, such as testosterone and estrogen. And many studies have shown that both men and women who take, these cholesterol-lowering drugs have lowered sexual desire, difficulty achieving an orgasm, and in men, difficulty in basically getting an erection. Remember, the goal is to have healthy cholesterol in like a good youthful range. You obviously don't want it super high, and you also don't want it low because, again, these problems happen. However, the real cause with these, problems, sexual problems from the use of these drugs is that they lower your cholesterol and lipid levels unnaturally. They work against your body and thus the negative side effects, which also lead to other issues like, again, blood pressure and blood sugar problems. However, there are natural ways. For example, taking fish oil is really helpful, and there are specific herbs and vitamins that can support healthy cholesterol levels naturally and not cause any of these negative sexual side effects, and in fact can actually improve your libido and ability to get erections. Of course, there's many other prescription drugs as well as over-the-counter drugs, meaning they used to be prescription, now people can just get them over the counter, in addition to street drugs that cause these same problems. Now, if you're taking any one or combination of the drugs that I mentioned today, obviously speak to your doctor and consider looking into natural alternatives that I've listed below this video. Because here's the truth. You and I both know that the older you get, the worse the hormones, the more stress we have in life, and the bigger these problems will become, the sexual side effects and the inability to perform.